The more we share our stories with others, the more we're going to see similarities in our humanity more so than our differences.
I continue to say that it is important that you leverage the power of storytelling in your business, because that is the only thing that is left for now anyway. Because now, with the advent of AI that we are in, everything has suddenly become very fast. AI is going to develop so much in the years to come, so that what you can do, if what you can do is to say, oh, I can write an article, okay, I can tell you that there are AI coming that with a few tweaks there, you can write a super article. But AI cannot be you.
Recently, I was working with a client and we used a platform called Yelp, and it's yelp.com. It's all about reviews in the United States. Companies, this is a wonderful platform for any business, especially if you have a brick and mortar location. Whatever business that you're in, if somebody gives you what you believe to be negative feedback, to me, there isn't any negative feedback. It's just feedback. It's important to understand it. You can't shy away from it, because exactly what Obehi said, you don't know what you need to improve if somebody doesn't tell you about it.
When you have been doing this storytelling exercise for some time, you come to meet people who tell you, oh, well, I don't have story. I don't know what to say. I don't know where to start. Which, of course, I believe is not a very solid excuse, because there is no person that don't have story. There is no person who haven't have an experience. There is no person who cannot reframe an experience. And that is what storytelling essentially is about, in that you are able to imagine, you are able to capture an imagination and allow some other persons to feel it, to understand it. That is what it is. Sometimes what you are talking about might not be real, in that it have never happened before. But because you are able to capture the imagination in a vivid way that somebody can see the picture, if you believe it so much, then it can come to be, which is actually the power of storytelling. That is why I continuously say that it is not that storytelling is one of the most beautiful things that we know. Storytelling is absolutely the most powerful instrument that we know. Whether you are talking of our metropolis, whether you are talking of the skyscraper, whether you are talking of the aeroplane, whether you are talking of the ship, whether you are talking of the mountain. I don't know if you have ever been to some country, is some very undulating land, where people will boil a hole inside it and make a road to cross inside it. All those are work of imagination. It has somebody said, that place there is no road, but I will put road there. Some people believe it, then it become that which what they believe. No, like you are staying in a place in a swampy area. There is no road there. There is no. It is full of maybe mosquito. So, but then we have a picture of how that can be transformed into a beautiful garden. You know what will happen if there are a lot of people that believe in that vision? One day it will come to pass. So there is no person who cannot dream. There is no person who cannot imagine. So that even if you don't have your own story, you can also leverage the story of other people, which is actually what we are talking about today. Using other people's story. Of course, there is nobody that cannot do that. You can talk about the story of your father, of your mother, of your sister. So we all have people who we can leverage their story. And this is what we are going to be talking about today. So I'm really very happy to have all of you here. And most importantly, I want to thank you, J. Pasquale, for joining us. So, of course, we are leveraging your presence. You are a storytelling strategist. So, why not? You must have a take on the conversation. Please take it from me.
Yeah, the topic today really is intriguing to me. As a strategist, especially, you know, there are really several things that we should consider when it comes to using other people's stories to, I think, enhance your narrative or your message, right? There, the topic should be, if you want to really look into this, if you want to break it down, there are several things. One, you building relatability is one thing. When you're using other people's stories, right? Building relatability. If you can find other stories that relate to yours, obviously it's going to relate to other people as well, right? Number two, it establishes credibility. I know there's several people who are young, right, but want to get into the business of consulting or coaching, and they still need a little bit more insight or experience. And how they build that credibility is by using other people's, basically people in authority, their stories to then enhance theirs, right? And this is a tactic that's used in a lot of consulting and coaching. Three, you got to provide a fresh perspective when relating to other people, and using other people's stories can help you do that. um, for it really is about demonstrating empathy. If you can put yourself in other people's shoes by essentially using their stories, you can do the same, right? And it really can project that vision of empathy if you use another person's story. Number five, I think one of the other things is creating value. Anytime you use storytelling in general, it's going to create that value. Somebody's going to want to hear that narrative. It's about strengthening that narrative, right? Two more things. Reinforcing brand values, I think, is another one. It really does go into that when you use other people's stories that align with yours. Pretty simple. And the last one is it encourages community engagement. When sharing stories from the community, clients, colleagues, industry peers, it's about inviting others to share their own experiences, creating a more interactive, engaged community. And this fosters a culture of inclusivity, openness, where the audience, just like people here, they will feel valued and part of a larger narrative. So I know that's a lot, but to me, these are the core concepts of why other people's stories can, especially if they align with yours, can strengthen your narrative, strengthen your message, and allow for the community, your audience, to relate to you and your narrative.
Thank you so much for that, Pasqua. That is really very beautiful. And I think there are a lot of things that are actually pinned down there, and particularly as you are talking about also the relatability in that the story that you are and tell it, even if it is the story of other people or other brand, it must in a way relate to your brand. In that you don't want to tell a story now of where maybe the audience is completely different from your audience. The people are going to be removed. In that they are not going to be able to find themselves in the story that you are telling. I think that is fundamentally important. And looking at the grand idea of using other people's story, I think it should even become a common sense now. Let's look at it this way. You see, the story that we actually tell are usually the story of other people in most of the cases. Because now, okay, let's say, for example, we are talking of the story of our family. The story of your family is not the story of you just as an individual, because you haven't lived enough to compose the entire family, because the family means that you are coming from a source, because that source will include maybe, of course, not maybe, it will include your father, your mother, your grandpa, your grandma, your uncle. All those are what come together to make up your family. When you are telling this story, you are usually telling the story of these people in relation to you, so that you are not just necessarily just coming out to say, "Oh, my name is this, I do this and do that." That is our story. No, that is your individual story. If that is all you say, people will not even find it easy to connect. But by the time you start talking of uncle now, talking of cousin, talking of your neighbor, talking of your co-worker, talking of your doctor, talking of your friends, and why not talking of also your enemy, people can relate, because there are different elements that are put together now to frame the story. To take it a little bit in another notch, there is what I often say, when we talk about the story of the people that have been here before us, therefore the story of our ancestors, which is particularly important if we are looking for a way to connect. I grew up in a small village in the south of Nigeria. Our people are basically agrarian, in that we cultivate land. That is where our food comes from. We are agricultural people. We grow food and all of that. So what I say there is that when you go into the forest to cultivate land, okay, sometimes there are cars that also go there, but are not very common. Usually people go there walking by foot. Now, that is a fine, small path that you walk into the forest. That is what I want us to pay attention to, zoom on. Now, that footpath, if you translate it, it will be like a fainting contour line in a geographical map. What it's saying is that there is a connection. What it's saying is that there is an evidence of something that have happened before. It's actually saying that this is not you starting everything. It's saying that something have happened before you, which is the story of other people that have happened before you. They have been there. They have lived. They have passed down experiences. So if you want to tell your story, therefore, or if I may just add it, the extended you must include other people too. So that when we talking of other story, where I'm coming to just now for J. Pasquale is the how. You will learn to know how to inculcate other people's story in your story, because you are not going to avoid it. It is not possible to avoid it. If you avoid other people's story in your story is going to be very flat. It's going to be very small. But that story need to be deep. Deep in the sense that, okay, for example, in my podcast, when a guest come in, I will ask the guest to tell me something about their origin, where they are coming from. It might look very, Italian will call banal, it's an ordinary, but it's not really ordinary. Because by the time you finish to tell me your story, which is where you were born, the time, what you see around you in that space of time, we already have opened a chocolate box that we cannot finish everything inside. Because when you say something, there is a context. There are people, there are situations that are liked, that are disliked. But by the time we finish to say all this, you will love it. You that is a guest in the podcast, because it helps you to find yourself deeper. This again is the story of other people, because it's not just about you. Remember, you're going to be talking about the people you went to school together. That woman or that man that looked at you in a very bad way that time, that person that helped you. You see, those people you also helped. By the time you begin to refresh your mind with that, you are building up your bank of memory. And all these are going to be helpful to you. They can be helpful to you even in business area too. So the question is this: how do we tell or how do we use other people's story effectively in our story? J. Pasqua is a strategy, it's a storytelling strategy. Please help us on that.
Absolutely. So, again, I laid out 7 different tenets on how it can enhance your personal story, right? And I'll use myself as an example. I host a LinkedIn audio event on Saturdays, and it's Story Time with Jay and Friends. Just the title alone indicates that I realize that other people's stories can enhance the narrative. Again, so with building relatability, what I'm doing is featuring other stories and music and poetry centered on my culture. I come from Guam in the Mariana Islands. Storytime with Jay and Friends brings relatable cultural narratives to a global audience. People like you in the audience, listeners from all backgrounds can connect with the themes of heritage, family, and resilience, making the stories personal, more meaningful, even across cultural lines. Pretty much what you were talking about, Obehi, in the beginning, right? Where you come from and your culture. It's these universal themes that's really important. I say it all the time in a lot of these audio events. The more we share our stories with others, the more we're going to see similarities in our humanity more so than our differences. And that is going to be compelling for many, many people. These universal stories of pain, of trauma, of joy, of love, passion, all of these stories will allow us to connect much more deeply, like you were saying, with each other. It goes back to the other things I was talking about, establishing credibility. People now know about my culture. I'm a cultural practitioner when I bring that authentic voice to the stories. And it can establish me as both a knowledgeable storyteller and cultural, I guess, custodian. It really reinforces my credibility. And this is what will be able to happen for those who do the same, incorporating other people's stories. And you're right. It's not just my story or it's my family's story. It's my ancestors' story, right? And so by doing that, I'm bringing everybody into the story. And when I'm talking about providing fresh perspectives, I'm inviting other people, not just from Guam, but across the globe, to offer their insights into the story that I'm sharing. How does it demonstrate empathy? Because that's number 4 that I talked about earlier. The stories I often share are talking about identity, resilience, The challenges of maintaining cultural heritage. That's, to me, empathetic storytelling, because the audience can connect deeply with the cultural challenges and joys that people experience, bridging differences and fostering really that shared sense of humanity, like I was talking about. Three more things, right? I mentioned creating value through storytelling. The event provides valuable cultural education and emotional resonance. People can relate on an emotional level. That's the value that I try to bring every Saturday. I don't take that audio event lightly. Sometimes the themes may be a little light, but the purpose of it to me is deep. And the last two, reinforcing brand values. My commitment to cultural preservation and authentic storytelling, I believe, comes through during that audio event when I'm sharing my stories and inviting others to share their stories. My story, I believe, is a really important one, but it only gets better when other people and their stories come to the fold. And lastly, encouraging community engagement. Again, story time with Jay and Friends. It's right there in the title. It's inviting listeners, people in the audience, to become part of this community. We have 19 villages on the island of Guam. 19. It's a tiny little island. And even though we have 19 villages, it still feels very tight knit. And it is, because it's an island. But I want to bring that same feeling, that close knit community, to the audio event by encouraging people to join, listen, even share their own stories so that they can foster a sense of belonging and community as we share in this audio event. I hope that kind of gives you an example of those 7 tenets that I was talking about.
Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you so much. You really are a story strategist, a storytelling strategist. That is powerful. Thank you so much for that sharing and that lay down of a groundwork for people to follow. Those who want to learn how to use other people's story, or who want to use storytelling, by the way, in their business, because we are continuously saying that it is important that you leverage the power of storytelling in your business, because that is the only thing that is left for now anyway, because now with the advent of AI that we are in, everything has suddenly become very fast. AI is going to develop so much in the years to come, so that what you can do, if what you can do is to say, oh, I can write an article, okay, I can tell you that there are AI coming that with a few tweaks there, you can write a super article. But AI cannot be you. If you are still a human being that can put your face in your article, then yours is going to be different. You say you will do analysis where AI are coming, where you will put the data there, they will give you a perfect one. Maybe they can still make mistake today, but they are going to always be refined. Well, a human being is always still needed to do the interpretation, to put the human emotion into it, because we are who we are because of our story. Somebody was saying that perhaps for over 30,000 years ago, story may have an effect in how our brain developed. In that we are sitting around, our ancestors are sitting around the campfire, able to tell story among themselves. This may have influenced how our brain developed. I don't have the data to back that up, but that is to say that storytelling is so important for us, so we must learn how to use it. And Jay have shared with us some of the ways to leverage other people's story, because other people's story are actually what we say, what we tell anyway. I've given some examples on that. Anyway, I want to thank all of you that are joining us in the conversation. I'm not taking you for granted. Reverend Gloria, thank you so much for being there. Zed, is this Zara? I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, but if I mistake, you could help me. Victoria, Frank, Latifa, thank you so much for being there. Daniel, Walker, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but in any case, I love you. Thank you for being here. Drushela, thank you. Angela, Lois, okay, we are getting ready for our conversation. Watia, thank you. Carolina, I see my brother there. We just finished an episode with him. Richard, thank you. And Dr. Marcia, Margaret, thank you so much for being there. Toluwanimi, is that correctly pronounced? Anyway, we have you in our mind. Platinum, then we have Emmanuel, Fikadu, and Andija. Okay, the name go on. All of you, we love you. We love you. We love you. Thank you for being here. And of course, if what we are talking about touch you, please join us, because the conversation is for everybody. We want to also learn how you are using storytelling in your work, and how you are, most importantly, using other people's story in your work. Because as you can see now, we demystify it for you, that you cannot say you don't use other people's story, because you need to use other people's story. I think Jay have shared with us how that can even make your story more rich, make it more connected for people, because you made mention of their village. Okay, let me say their town, their city in your story. Now they pay attention more. You made mention of what they like. Now they pay attention more. Maybe what they like is not really what you like, but because it relates to them, the place or situation, now they pay more attention. So it is important that we do that. And it helps also in the connection. And this is what are fundamentally important. Now, talking about the importance of storytelling, and of course the story of other people, there is what I quite say often, that stories, particularly our ability to imagine things and bring it to life, is something that is perhaps unique to us as human species. A story too sometimes can either be good or bad too. It is not just a good thing or a bad thing. Okay, maybe that's a little bit controversial, but okay, let me explain. Storytelling is a tool. Maybe we can agree on that. And every tool is a double-edged sword. Okay, let me give an example. Salt. You see, salt is a good thing for you to eat, because if you put it on your food, it has nice flavor. But if you eat too much of it, you will die, and sometimes almost instantly. Don't try it. You see, electricity is a good thing, in that when you use it correctly, you have light in your house. You can power up your computer. You can have light when it is dark. But if you put your hand in the wrong part, you will die, sometimes almost instantly. What about water? Water is good, but it can also kill. So storytelling is very good, but when it is in the hand of bad people, it can be used to malign a people. Should I give an example? You see, in Germany, up until, say, in the year 1913, I give this example quite often to help people understand that what we are talking about is not really far away, it's very near to us. And storytelling in general is something that we are inside. It's not something that is far away from us. We are part of it, because it's what shapes who we are. So in those years, say in the 1930, 1935, moving towards 1914, because then we'll be preparing for the war, the people that will later be crucified, later be massacred in Germany, I'm talking of the Jews, they were seen just as neighbor, as husband, as wife, as co-worker, and all of that. But do you know nothing happened? There was no other evolution. They didn't transform in any way. A story just happened. Somebody changed the narrative, saying that these people are the enemy. That story was sold into the mind of the population. And of course, you know what happened. And for many people here who are of African descent, you perhaps might understand how stories have been told that help to justify our exploitation for very many years. But you see, storytelling can also be useful for us to help us build up the community, build up our society. Now, how does that relate to using other people's story? Imagine that the purpose of you using storytelling is to build up a community, therefore. What if we could collect the story of the people, the story that unites them together, and reinforce it in the narrative? That can help us to build up a community. We use their story or story of other people similar to them and share that story with them. They can have something that is common among them that they can rally around. This is why we have the National Assembly, for example, so that they continue to reinforce a line that unites the entire country. I want you to imagine the United Nations, the symbol of the conversation that is happening around. The United Nations is built up after a village square. Village square is older than the United Nations. What happened in the village square is that in the evening or sometime, the people gather together to rally around common things, common theme that unite the people together. So we'll be doing this for a very long time. I remember, for example, in 2015, I wrote a book that I titled Amended the Stream Water. Okay, that is actually have been one of my best-selling books to date. In that book, even though I was not doing anything about storytelling as of 2015, but actually started with storytelling. It had started by somebody telling stories, somebody doing the narrative every evening by the name of Okpuje. Every evening, all the children of Okpuje village, which is, okay, by extension, or that setting is in Nigeria, from my place again, they will gather around Okpuje, who will tell their story. Okay, that book was reviewed by different people, including anthropologists, professor at the university, and they even let me understand what I didn't know was inside the book. I am the writer of the book, but somebody had to help me understand some intricacies that were hidden in my own writing. I was wondering, really? So that the storyteller by the name of Kopuji, every evening, he will tell story to the children. Again, he's not telling his story. He's telling the story of their ancestor, the story of how their forefather came from the ancient city of Benin and came to Uromi. Now, why is he telling that story? He's telling that story because he wants to build up an image in the mind of the children. And guess what is happening? I asked the question also in the book. There is nothing of historical importance that Okpuje will share with the children that he has not shared with them. Because what story are you telling? After a couple of years, you should have finished to tell the story. But every evening, like drug, like kind of, how do I put it? That is a force that is dragging all the children there every evening to listen to the story of Okpuje. Talking about their friends, their enemy, how their ancestors have farmed, how the rodent, the little animal have come to destroy the farm, how they have managed to overcome it. He told them everything. And the children were always coming to listen to the story of other people. And it was happy to reinforce their identity. Now, there is something important there again. The house of Okpuje, which is a storyteller, is built under a tree called Ovu. Now, that tree becomes a symbol of everybody looking towards something that they have in common. Later, when I was doing the analysis of that story, I said that tree remained like the United Nations, where everybody is sitting down looking at something in the middle. That thing is uniting all of us together. We have a common front as humanity. J. Pascal was talking about our collective humanity before. when we tell our story, we also must look for a way to highlight our humanity, because we can use story to build our humanity. Okay, in the hands of some bad people, they can also use it to destroy humanity. Both have happened in history. But we hope that by sharing with you how to use storytelling, that you will be the good one who uses it to build up our community. So this is what we are talking about today, that the story of other people can actually be used in our narrative, in our business. But what type of this story can we actually be talking about today? Let's look at, for example, your customer testimonial. Those who are coming to do business with you. You see, there is a reason that Amazon is doing very well, or have been doing very well for many years, because I think Amazon were the one that introduced review. Maybe other people have been doing it, but they were the one that actually made the idea very popular. In that when you buy something from them, when you buy something in Amazon, the customer, which is you, or maybe other people that are buying from you, will come to write whether they like it or not, or what they like in it or not, maybe either reject or upgrade your product based on their experiences. In the initial stage, this was seen as negative because now you are talking bad about something. Yet, of course, today, people can get a product from you that is good. They can still say it is bad because that is part of the human nature. But the general idea is that we can allow the people to be part of the narrative, in that they can share their experiences they can share what they get experiencing our product. And we can take that story and use it to convince other people to do business with us. So we can use the story of our customer in our business as testimonial. But how could we do that? What are the best strategies to be able to use customer story in our business? What about video, for example? What about maybe somebody said something good about you? What are the best ways to be able to inculcate this in business? Those, again, are questions I would like to leave to Jay Pasqua. As a storytelling strategy, Jay, what do you think are the best strategy to use customer storytelling in business as other people's story as an example here? What would you say about that? Or if any way you are using it in your story, if anything you can share with us in line with that.
Sure, absolutely. So recently, it's so funny that you're talking about this, because recently I was working with a client and we used a platform called Yelp, and it's yelp.com. It's all about reviews in the United States. Companies, this is a wonderful platform for any business, especially if you have a brick and mortar location. If you're doing business in the United States, you can put your information on here. It's like a business directory across the United States where people can put up their information. Now, what the platform invites people to do, clients, customers, members, whatever, if you're doing business out there, they invite the audience, the people that they do business with, to leave reviews. It's powerful. Now, you get a 5-star rating, right? If you get the 5-star rating, people love you, right? It shows, because now you have 5 stars. If you have 3, or if you have 2, or if you have 1, that doesn't bode well for you. This is the power of storytelling. I want to go back to what Obehi was saying about how storytelling can be used for bad reasons, purposes, right? And we can look to humanity's shared history, right? He mentioned Nazi Germany. This is important to understand. If narratives can be used to push an evil agenda and create havoc, we see the evil power that it can hold there. Remember that in science, if there is positive, there is negative. If there's negative, there's positive. And so this is true for storytelling. If there is power to influence people for nefarious reasons, there is power for positivity to influence people, call people to action for positive reasons. And in business, an entire industry now exists because of it. An entire industry exists because of it. Yelp.com, you talk about Amazon, Google does the same thing. They have reviews when you go into Google for businesses. And marketing companies, people who deal with other people's stories all the time, are leveraging those reviews to bolster the credibility and authority of these businesses. An entire industry now exists because your review, your story related to the services or products is important, valuable even. So valuable, businesses are leveraging your stories to help bolster their authority, their credibility, and most importantly, the services and products they provide. Obehi, really good question and really good comments regarding that. Absolutely. Back to you.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Uh, you see, within that customer story or the customer review and rating, which is one of the way to use other people's story in your business, you see, it's not only for the purpose of sales, no? So just to add to what Jane has said there, which of course is highly valuable. Now imagine that you are telling the customer to be like the mirror for you. You see, usually you cannot see yourself, no? You need the eyes of other people to be able to see yourself. Okay, so you stand in front of a mirror, therefore that tell the mirror, how do I look like? Then through the mirror, you can see your face, particularly for women that need to do makeup, so they understand this perfectly well. Now, when it comes to product development, sometimes, because you are the one that is developing the product, you might not see the negative effect in it, or maybe the side effect in it, should I call it like that? Or maybe what is wrong in the product? Because maybe you are not only using the product now, depending on what type of product you are creating. So you might put the product out there and let the market decide. One of the ways the market decide voting for you with their dollar, and sometimes with their comment, is by sharing their review, by letting you know, oh, in this particular product, I don't like this part. Okay, there are some people who might give you a good review. A good review is that they help you understand what is wrong in it. Other people might just say bad. I remember, for example, I was doing a journalism course with London School of Journalism a couple of years ago. So the lecturer was saying, don't get angry when people don't know how to give you a feedback. Maybe somebody can tell you, that thing is good. But he said, what is good? For you to be able to criticize something or analyze or review something, you need to be able to point out certain things like, okay, I love this soup because there is a pepper in it. Is very is very sweet. There is a soury taste and all of, because by the time you bring out those elements in it, the person who have prepared the food now know what to elevate or reduce the other day. You see, in the house, this happens all the time. My wife is very good in the kitchen. She's absolutely the best, no? But there are sometimes that maybe the food have certain element in it that sometimes she might even ask me, but honey, how do you look at it? I will say my opinion. By voicing out my opinion, she now know which part of it to correct the next time. So in product development or in the market, customer story or customer review can help us in this way, which is it can be very advantageous for you, helping you to know what to correct in your product or in your service, because they are letting you know how they feel about it. That story, you can take it and use it to improve in what you are doing, because you don't have everything figured out in the beginning. That is why we say when you are developing your product, make sure to do minimum viable product, which is it's a good product, but it's not the best yet. Even though it's not the best, put it in the market. Let the market forces decide. It is a better option than spending all the time and doing your perfectionist, and you bring the product to the market and the market don't need it, because the market have no obligation, absolutely no obligation to buy your product. They will buy your product if they like it. Remember that they have option. So we can use customer story to improve ourselves in the sense that we create our product, we put it out there, we let people, hey, come and buy, or come and test, or come and experience it. But let us know, how do you feel about that? So it can be helpful for us for improvement also, to know what kind of product to develop, to even know whether that product is even viable for them. Because I repeat, the market have no obligation to buy from us until it can be valuable to them. So we don't need to see the review as a negative thing, or maybe we should say the stories coming from the customer as being negative. We need to take it and use it. All right, now I have another question. But anyway, by the way, those of you in the audience, I want to believe that maybe you are using storytelling in your business. Maybe you are using also other people's storytelling in your business. Of course, I can guarantee that. Maybe you can share with us. Why not? If you have anything to say concerning the conversation, you can raise your hand. Let's add it to the conversation. Let's bring it to the table so you can. We want to learn also from you. Your experiences is important for us too. All right, so I have another question, Jim. The question now have to do with, are there some things that people might be doing wrong in using other people's story? But that, I mean, is there something that you think maybe people can avoid when they use other people's story in their business? What do you say about that?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things is what you brought up in what you just said. Do not shy away from the feedback you're getting from your audience, from your clients, from your customers, from your members, whatever it is, that whatever business that you're in, if somebody gives you what you believe to be negative feedback, to me, there isn't any negative feedback. It's just feedback. It's important to understand it. You can't shy away from it, because exactly what Obehi said, you don't know what you need to improve if somebody doesn't tell you about it. And so to shy away from it, you're not going to improve. You're not listening to the people that are relying on your service and your product. And that, more than anything else, can kill your business. If you're not listening to the people that you're servicing, you're giving a product to enjoy, and they're not enjoying it, then you're doing yourself a disservice. It's important to hear those as well. Let me give you some examples. I worked in the call center industry for 14 years, and feedback is king. Again, another industry that exists where your story about the product or service for this company is paramount. It's important. We're not going to understand how we're doing if we're not getting feedback. I also participated as a public speaker in poetry competitions. And the one thing that I looked for was how the crowd responded to the message I was bringing to the stage. Did I get did I get booed off the stage? Did I get cheers? Did people respond at all? How did my message land on the crowd listening to my poetry was important to me because I want my pieces, my art, to have an impact on people, to see that my message landed well. And the same thing is true if you want to have a successful business. There's no two ways about it. You have to hear what's going on. An entire industry, several industries exist. People have marketing data companies just on reviews and stories from the consumer. I want to get to other people, so I'm going to go ahead and give it back to Obehi.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Jay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Of course, those are key points. Those are key points that people must pay attention to. Where we cannot avoid hearing from from the customer because they are the one that are actually consuming the product. They are the one that are using it. So we should listen to them if we want to better serve them because we are in the market to serve. So we must hear the people to know whether we are serving them correctly. So thank you so much for that, Jay. I appreciate that. All right, talking of serving the customer and serving them correctly, I think the first person that joined us just now was Brandon Richard. Richard, please take the mic from me. What do you say about it?
Yeah, thank you, Obehi. And see you again, Jay. And thank you for bringing me up. And yeah, I think this is a really important topic. And I just kind of wanted to weigh in on some of what both of you were speaking to earlier about the power of storytelling, and particularly other stories as well as your own story and why that resonates and kind of the psychology behind that. And a big element of it is that we as people in general making decisions, but particularly in business, are not logical decision makers. We make a lot of our decisions based on emotion. And that's something that people often misunderstand about marketing, branding, and business is that much of it is emotion driven. And it's why sometimes if you just directly ask somebody what they would do in a certain situation, they're using their logical brain to think about it. And then what they actually do in the real situation can be very different because that's when the emotional side kicks in. And it's a shortcut for us to be able to process information faster so that we're not always getting paralysis analysis. And storytelling really helps to activate emotion. And that's important. It's hits a different spot than things like data and facts and features. When you're able to integrate not only your story, but the stories of other customers, people can see themselves in that and they can relate to that. And what that starts to do is it lights up a part of the brain that isn't necessarily the logical part, it's the emotional part. Areas like the amygdala, which is kind of the emotional center of the brain. And when more parts of the brain start to activate and light up and those emotional receptors start to go off, what that does is create deeper memories. And memories are very important. It starts to tie the customer's experience to your brand and to those stories. And they start to see themselves and tell themselves stories and rethink things that they've lived through that are similar, right? And then every time they think about those things and they have that emotional response, they're going to start to think of the brand, the product, the service, the business, you, right? Because you've built that connection, that emotional bridge between their experience, your experience, and the experience of other customers. And that can't be underestimated. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Richard. That is really beautiful. I think people need to pay attention to that. You're so right, though, because people think that they're actually taking the decision rationally, but it is not. We are not rational at all about this. So, of course, we need people like you to help us understand this part. So the interview I did with Richard actually was published today, so you can check it out on our YouTube channel. So you can listen to how Richard explained this part to us, the psychology of branding. That is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for that. All right. So yeah, the second person that joined us just now was Frank. So Frank, what is your take on the conversation? How to use other people's story in your business? Please take it from me.
Thank you, and what a great room. It's I say room because I'm always in Clubhouse. So, but this is live on LinkedIn, I think. Yeah, LinkedIn. So yeah, this everything that was said was so beautiful, so spot on. And why I came up is you all know the guy Nick Vujicic. He's born with no arms and legs, and I saw this guy 5-6 years ago. And he told me his story. I was listening to his story. And if you know the story, he was born with no arms and legs in Australia, thought he had no say in this world. And 24 hours later, when he spoke on a school, because he was pushed by a cleaner on his school, he said all the time, one day you will be a very important person. And Nick was thinking, why is he talking about? I've got no arms and legs. Nobody's waiting for my story. And guess what? Finally, it's a long story short, finally, he called a school. He called 50 schools, and the 51 school called back and said, yeah, Nick, you can come and talk. And he talked for 20 minutes on that school. And after that talk, he was so depressed. He went home, asked his mother, bring me home, put me in bed. I don't want to eat. I'm so depressed telling my own story. And guess what? The next morning, his phone never stopped ringing. And now Nick Vujicic is the most asked speaker in the world. And, you know, it's unbelievable that you don't think you have a story. And he changed it. And guess what? I met Nick now 3 times in life. And I was lucky enough to have a one-on-one with Nick. And Nick listened to my story. And guess what he said? He said this. He said, Frank, maybe your story is even more stronger than my story. And it's your moral obligation to tell your story because you were putting this story away for 25 years, as I did. But guess what? Somebody is waiting for your story to go to the best chapters of their life. So go out, write that book, and speak wherever you can speak and tell your truth and all that. And for me, that was so important. But he said one thing also. He said, Frank, you've got a problem. I thought, oh my God, why are you saying this? I know I had mental illness and I was lost for 13 years, mental institutions, locked up and everything. So I thought, why are you bringing this up? He said, no, that's not it, Frank. You know what your biggest problem is? You have arms and legs. And I had to think about that. Think about that. I have arms and legs. If he books a big stadium, it's full because everybody wants to see a guy with no arms and legs. But people with mental illness, nobody knows, nobody sees. But guess what? Behind every speaker, behind every great speaker, is a story that gave him no choice. And or her no choice. And that's what the people need to hear. People need to hear that you came out of it because people are living in a prison with the door wide open and don't have a clue to get out. And that's what you do with high impact storytelling. That's why I changed my complete life to be now a high impact storyteller, because it can change people's life instantly. So thank you for bringing me up.
Wow. Wow. That is so beautiful, Frank. That is really so beautiful. You see, this is actually the magic in it, no? Uh, um, there is this technique, I think they call reframing, in that you have a situation in front of you. You might not be able to change that situation, but how do you reframe it so that it can be different, no? Because sometimes what we see as a problem might actually be the solution that we need, only that we haven't been able to see it the way it really is, or the way it should be for us. And so we are seeing it as a problem. The other day, I was interviewing somebody in my podcast. We were talking of the challenges that might be in a country like Nigeria, because the person was referring to the Nigeria situation, and they were talking of the population. In Nigeria, we are about 230 million people, actually more. It's a population that is growing very rapidly. When I left Nigeria 20 years ago, the population was 120 million people. So you can imagine more than 100 million people is added in about 20 years. So, but then the person was actually looking at that as a problem. I was saying, but what if we could look at it differently? That now, as an entrepreneur, because we're looking at the argument from an entrepreneurial point of view, that somebody could see that as an advantage, in that because there are a lot of people in Nigeria, it means that whatever you create in Nigeria can become a business for you. And this is literally true. I am not joking. It is true. In Nigeria, anything you create, of course, that people can consume, this is very simple. You can be really successful with it. A South African company, MTN, came to Nigeria and they make more money in Nigeria than they made in South Africa for all these years. So I am saying that the way we reframe our situation can actually be the big thing that either kill us or make us grow. Nick doesn't have hands and legs. For some person, that might be the problem. But he say to Frank, well, that is an advantage for me. Of course, when you stand and I stand, people look at me because of the disadvantage that I have. And he is able to reframe it and turn in, actually leverage his story in a way that the story can make way for him. And of course, it doesn't mean now that each of us need to cut out our hands and legs so that we'll become successful. No, that is not what it means. What it means is that you need to ask yourself, where are you? What is the situation that you find yourself? What are the circumstances that made up who you are? You don't need to say now that, oh, I need to be like him or her before I can do it. No. You are making a mistake. You need to ask yourself, where are you? Whatever you might find yourself is an opportunity for you. Now, let me share another experience with you guys. Now, okay, I am not a famous person. I am not a rich person by any means in the sense of having a lot of money. Okay, I love what I do. And I really, really love what I do. So there are some people from Nigeria, of course, they be here. They listen to my interview. They listen to the episode because sometimes I do share it with some of them. And they really are very happy about it. And they will say, oh, Obehi, okay, they are from my place. Obehi, oh, if you have been in the UK or in the US, you would have really blown up because of what you are doing. Italy is just a wrong country. I maybe wish you were in Nigeria, it would have been really this and that and that. Sometimes I've taken time to reflect on that. I say, but Italy is where I've really getting the chance to be able to do what I'm doing now. Which of course that might be itself complex in itself, no? In that I usually would say you don't know what you don't know. Instead, take the situation that you have and reframe it in the way that it can make sense to you, in the way that it can help you to move to the next level. In reframe the story, own your story. That is why I call it own your story and reshape it the way you want, because you are the storyteller. At least you are the owner of your story. Own that story and reframe it the way you want it. So that is fundamentally important. So that, like Nicky, the Australian celebrity, he's a celebrity now who does not have hands and legs. He has become very famous because he owns his story. Now, guess what? If he didn't own his story, he will be just a poor beggar on the street. Nobody will care about him. But he owns his story. Where he stands today, people that have hands and legs, they cannot stand there. I am not joking. That is literally the truth. Where Nick stands today, with what he has been able to build of his personal story. I'm not saying because he tried to copy other people, of his personal story, because I've listened to the guy a number of occasions. He is full of inspiration. Many people that have hands and legs and maybe affluence and maybe coming from a family that have the money, they cannot stand there. Which is to say, if you own your story, it can make way for you. And of course, you can also use other people's story, which is what we are talking about today. What is happening around you, you can frame it. You can reframe it. Now, so the Morrison was saying something important, that you need to pay attention to the ordinary. Because many people are so busy with what is happening on CNN or BBC. Okay, I'm not saying those are wrong, but you need to remember that what is happening to you, where you are, in your little village, your little quarter, in your little city, or in your big city, whether you are in the big one or the small one, is important too. If you don't pay attention to that small one, you will be missing. Because nobody have that same vantage point that you have. Nobody have that same opportunity that you have, in the sense that you are absolutely a unicorn. You are unique. So if you don't own your story or take the story around you and reframe it, you see, that is important. Okay, I'm using the word excessively now, reframing, but that is what I think we really should do. Either we take what is happening, reframe it in a way that it can put us in a better light, and it will make a way for us. That is fundamentally important. And I thank you for that, Frank. That is important. All right, we have Victoria Victor. Those VV did are really very sounding very good. Please share with us. The conversation is using other people's story in your business. What says you?
Thank you so much, Mr. Obehi, and every other speaker. Hey, Jay, glad to see you again. I don't know if I would be permitted to say, yes, using somebody's story to tell my story, it's okay. But I have grown to a level that I have too many experiences to share with my audience that I may not even have the spot to use other people's stories. What do I mean? I am one woman that have lost too many businesses. The last one after COVID, everything I owned went down the drain. I had nothing to start life with. Any other person would have said, okay, at 50, there's nothing left for you to do. Just start begging or do whatever any other woman would do. But like you called me Victoria Victor, my name carries double victory. I never allow my back to hit the ground. I've lost too many businesses than most people, but I never allow my back to hit the ground. But this time around, there was nobody to help. The country is not smiling. I dusted my CV and went back to work. I worked for 2 companies, transitioned from one job role to the other, and I did awesomely well. I always overshoot my target. But at some point, I was not fulfilled because the last 2 places were very, very toxic, super toxic. So when people hear me try to fight against toxicity, they don't know what it means. It messes with your mind. And so I resigned and I started She Evolution from nothing. Nothing, absolutely nothing. I just heard a voice tell me, start a movement against toxicity. And I started. As I speak today, we are training 50 women in tech skills free. As I speak today, the program is running. So Nigeria, like my brother said, Nigeria is tough. The populace is there. But these people have become so toxic that their creative valve has been capped. So if we do not share our stories, if we do not open up and heal them, get them that mental healing and how to process their mental health, then show them what to do because they have the voice, they have a little bit of knowledge. If we do not train them, if we do not share the authenticity of our story, if we do not get our voices out there, it's going to be double tragedy. Why? Because we live in an environment. I'm not talking about the Western nations now, I'm talking about Nigeria. We live in an environment that people want to cage our voices. They don't want you to tell the truth. They will look down on you. They will give you so many reasons why you should not share the truth. And I tell them, I would rather share my story and share the story of any other person. Like you mentioned that guy with no hands and no feet. I was that man. I watched him 2 decades ago. If I tell you that that man is one of the reasons I don't allow my back to hit the ground, because I told myself if this man can create a platform for himself when he had nothing, nobody to stand for him. You know what it means to not have hand and feet? And today he's a well celebrated speaker. Then Victoria Victor, nothing should keep you down. And so I want to advise us, or I want to encourage us, share your story, no matter how terrible it is. That mistake you made, because I made a mistake in my business and it cost me everything. That story that I am putting out there is what is bringing people to me, making people want to work with me, making people want to support me, making people relate with my story. That authenticity is what is opening global doors for me. So why would I be ashamed of sharing my mistake? We have all made mistakes one way or the other. Share it, learn from it, and then run with it because it will never repeat itself again. But when you keep hiding it, so many other people will make similar mistakes. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria Victor. That is double victory. I get a message. Thank you so much for sharing, sister. We love you. We love your message, and we also love your optimism. You see, that there is one thing I like to say, and I continue to say it. Until Nigeria is no more, I believe in us. We are going to make it. It's okay. It's okay. So thank you also for what you are doing. You say you are training 50 people for free. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine what that means? Because we need role model. This is not only within Nigeria, but also within the African diaspora and also among other people too. Within people that when people in the community look up, they can say, oh, I want to be like him. I want to be like her. Because when you come out and share your story, this is what is happening. Let me say this. This is what is happening. You are not only happy yourself, but you are happy a lot of people you can't even imagine. Okay, for example, this room is being recorded. Your voice is being captured now. And it's going to be here for a very long time. I want to repeat that again. It's going to be here for a very long time. It's possible that when we put this video out there, YouTube will come to an end. But what we are recording, we are capturing something that is going to be available in another form. So when you share your story, you are like giving people the audacity to also share their story, because now they can say, oh, I might not be Victoria, but if Victoria can do it, I can do it too. Do you know what that means? You are giving people the audacity to own their story, because they look at you as a reference for them. You see, Victoria is saying when she listened to the story of Nick, the Australian person that we are making reference to today, is not allowing her to lose hope of what is happening to her. That's what storytelling does. In 2010, I was presenting my book, one of my books. The book is titled "On that Development in Africa, My Hands Are Clean." So when I was doing the presentation now, of course, there were a lot of people invited. There was this young girl who was there. Then she was in secondary school. Okay, but now she's a graduate. She have OBSC. She was saying, because she see that I have written a book, she will be a writer. You see, this is not a joke. This is real life story. That when you own your story, you are giving the privilege to other people to say, I can do it too. Now, talking of using other people's story, I just want to add something important here. You see, I come from a part of Nigeria where we have significant event, historically speaking. But this event, we hardly had it on a book to read. And this is despite the fact that there are a lot of people who can do it very easily. By that I mean professor, doctor, BSc, people who have studied, who know how to do these things. But for some reason, for some strange reason, nobody have taken the time to document the story. Therefore, we don't have those stories to read. Let me give you an instance. In the 1300s, there was a war that happened between Benin. Many of you will know Benin, the Benin Empire, okay? Benin City is still an important city in Nigeria today. The Oba of Benin then, called Oba Ozola, had a conflict with the Onoje of Uromi. I'm coming from Uromi. So this war will last for some time. The Oba of Benin and the Onoje of Uromi will die in that war. Okay, something as significant like that, I should not find it difficult to find a book to read about it, because the Benin monarch is one of the most significant in the whole of African history. But I don't find anything to read about it. So who is going to tell that story? That's what I'm talking about here. That we must tell those stories. Those are our story. Now, what does that mean, telling those stories? By the time we tell those stories, people like me who will grow up one day and see a book that talks about such individuals who have shaped our life, I will be very proud. So if we tell our story, we help a generation to come. So it is important that we tell our story, like Victoria is saying. And it is important that we also help other people to have confidence to tell their own story. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you, sister. All right, Kate, thank you so much for joining us. So what is your take on the conversation? It is using other people's story. What do you say?
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're. I think some people are still in the morning, so good morning, wherever you're joining us from. But here it's evening here in Nigeria. All right. So it's a pleasure to contribute to this conversation. Right. Okay, so we're talking about using other people's stories, and one interesting story that came to my mind is this is a story that I always like to tell, wherever I go. I always like to refer to this story because it is a story born out of resilience, and it's a story born out of, I can do it. I can do something. Okay, so imagine that you are in a niche where you feel like it is crowded. There are a lot of people. I'm talking about the food industry. Okay, we have so many chefs, especially in Nigeria. We have so many chefs, chef this, chef that, chef this, and then they have YouTube channels. They have um, Instagram pages that are doing well, and a lot of people engage on those YouTube channel and Instagram pages. So when you call the first 10 chefs in Nigeria, you know everyone already knows them because they are very popular. When you come on YouTube, they are there. How to cook this, how to cook jollof rice, how to cook all these chefs are there. But there was one lady that her voice was not heard. She's a chef. She has been around for years. She actually put out a course to teach people with different recipes, to teach different Nigerian food and intercontinental food. And the turnout of that registration for her course was very low. And it was very disappointing. But what did this lady do? This lady decided that the world must hear her voice. This lady decided that the world must know her and that she was going to be among the first, in fact, let me say 5 chefs in Nigeria. And then all around the world, she must be amongst the first 10, And what did she do? She decided to put in for, the cookathon and decided to get a Guinness Book of Records. She decided she was going to her name was going to enter the Guinness Book of Records for cooking. And then she hosted a cookathon in Nigeria. And it was crazy. Like, it was the whole of Nigeria after just few days erupted. Everyone were like, oh, Hilda, yes, her name is Hilda Bassi. So she got some a team, put a team together, and then they decided to, they got a space, decorated, got the, blogs, TV and all that, and then they started publicizing. Within 2 days, the whole of the venue where she was cooking was filled up with people cheering her on. Hilda, Hilda, they were cheering, Hilda, we want to party. They started singing. And guess what happened? Everyone cheered her up. People living in other countries outside Nigeria, they were cheering her on from wherever they were living. And at the end of the cookathon, she exceeded the last person that won the record for the cookathon in the Guinness Book of Records. She exceeded the last person and she became the current cookathon, with the number of hours she cooked, she became the champion, And what did this do for her? The very first course she put out there, like I told you earlier, she recorded very few sales. Okay, let's try this again. So now, after this event and after she got her award, she put out a course again. I can't even tell you how many millions she made out of that course. And I can't even tell you how many people registered. Right now, she is in the brands of a lot of cooking, anything that has to do with cooking, spices, and in Nigeria, she is now a brand ambassador to so many companies. Okay, so why am I telling us this story? This story, like anytime I think about it, I'm like, nobody knew Hilda Bassi before the competition. Nobody knew her, but she thought out of the box. She decided to sit down and think, what can I do? How can I stand out in my niche? This is a problem a lot of us face. We are like, oh, this niche is crowded. There are so many storytellers out there. There are so many content writers out there. There are so many digital marketers out there. Yes, there are so many, but you can stand out with your own story. Hilda decided to create her story. She rewrote her story. Her story, first of all, was she was one of the chefs in Nigeria, and she didn't even make the first 50. To tell you how serious this is, she didn't make the first 50 people. When you're talking about chefs in Nigeria, she did not make it. But after this competition, after the whole thing, Hilda Bassi she's the number 1 now in Nigeria. So, ladies and gentlemen, what am I trying to say? You can rewrite your story. No matter the niche you are, no matter how old you are, no matter, what you've lost, no matter, there's no reason. There's nothing holding you back. You can decide to rewrite your story, and you you become the top. It doesn't matter. There's a singer in Nigeria that I think he's around 80, I think 70 something. He released an album when he was younger, when during his active years, he released this album. But now, do you know that a skit maker in Nigeria used his music for a skit, and that skit became very popular. The music, the sound of that skit became very popular in Nigeria. Now, this man, he's now earning from a song he put out years ago. He's, I think, 70 going to 80 or something like that. I can't remember his exact age. But this man is making a lot. He made a lot of money from that song he put out 20, 30, 40 years ago while he was young. Okay. So I'm just trying to tell us that you can rewrite your story, just be resilient, think about it, sit down. How can I strategize? What can I do to stand out? What can I do to be different from every other content writer on LinkedIn? What can I do to be different from every other storyteller on LinkedIn? Draft it out, write it out. Get the people that can help you, because Hilda was surrounded with it. She had a team. She came up with a team of people. Some people were in charge of posting on social media, some were in charge of meeting the blogs and all that. Some were in charge of getting people to the venue. Some were in charge of giving out the food as she cooked. They were serving people. People were going there to eat. That's how interesting the whole thing was. People were going there to eat. They sat down and they were serving them the food she was cooking, and they were eating. They were enjoying. They were singing and jubilating. So strategize, write down everything. How do you want your story to end? How do you want to change your story? What are the things you want to put in place to change your story? Write them out and just go into action. At the end, you'll be so happy that you were able to rewrite your own story, and now the world knows you. Thank you so much for having me, Obehi. I'm Kate Agbontine, a digital marketer, content marketer, and a public speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you so much for that. That is really beautiful. That is beautiful. That is at the heart of the conversation today. That when you own your story, you never need to compete with anyone. That is a message that I try to preach to a lot of people. Okay, I'm not, I preach that gospel. No, you see, I was research a couple of weeks ago that different data shows that since we show up on Earth as human beings, as species, there have been about 170 billion people that have walked the surface of the Earth. And another thing that I quickly find out about that is that none of us have actually been a carbon copy of another. Each of us has been unique. Now, you see, last year, Google said that there are now over 5 billion people on the internet. I want you to imagine that for a moment. 5 billion people on the internet. That looks like it's crazy, right? But it's not crazy. If you own your story, you can see standard. That is what Kate is saying. Because there is nobody that is just as a carbon copy of you. Even the universe cannot produce that just now. We are too complex as a piece of information to just be a copy of another person. We need to own our story. That is fundamentally important. We need to own our story, because when we do, we don't have any competition. I first begin to get this piece of information from a book that I read a couple of years ago by Walter Walland. The book is called The Science of Getting Rich. Walter Walland wrote that book in 1910. It's a very important book. He talked about the importance of collaboration instead of competition, because there is a lot that we can do together that we can do against each other. So why don't we collaborate? Why don't we use our creative mind to do something new, to reinvent the narrative, to change the story? Maybe like we are talking about today, we could look at the story that is happening around us I don't even want to know where you find yourself. You are in Germany, you are in France, you are in US, you are in UK. Something is happening right where you are that only you, okay, I want to repeat that again. Something is happening right now that only you own the story. Nobody know that story, but only you, because it is happening right where you are. But what usually happens to people is that they leave all these and they are hunting for what is happening in some other place. You know, the old saying, the grass is greener in the neighbor's backyard. But in your backyard, it's also green. Do you know that if you craft a good story of the breakfast that you have today, people will say, really? Yes, really. Because it is the flavor that you put in it that the people are looking for. Sorry, maybe I'm a little bit emotional, so the thing is catching me. So I'm saying that it is important that we pay attention to what is happening around us. It is fundamentally important. So thank you so much for that, Kate. All right, Jane, we have come to the end of the conversation, nearly the end of the conversation. So what would be your, no, let me start with Frank first, so that we conclude with Jay. Frank, what would be your final thought? Because that story that you brought about Nikki, you see, it becomes very important, the center point of the conversation. No? So would you want to say more about that as a conclusion to your contribution here today? Please go.
Well, it was all amazing, and I love it because this is what I do, and I never ever thought I'm going to be a speaker. And the same with Nick. He never thought he's going to be a speaker. And guess what now? He is sponsoring 66,000 children every day with food, medical care, school, and everything. Because everything he makes from the speaking. Because just like Nick always says, Frank, do you know how you sleep at night? When you're doing something great and you get paid ridiculous money, and if you can give it away, and when you give that away, how do you sleep? How do you? And I never thought. 25 years I live with that story. I thought I had a second chance of life. I'm not going to talk about my failures. I'm not going to tell about my breakdown. I'm not going to tell this. Never, ever, ever, ever. And Nick, with no arms and legs, and it's so funny when he said this, I come on, kick you. He cannot kick. He's got no arms and legs. But, you know, the expression he made to me, listen, it's your moral obligation, my friend. Don't do it for the applause. Do it for the cause. Do it really for something good, you know? And everything I make now, 10, 50%, I've got some children in Nepal, and I can help them. And I never thought uh, to be in this position. But just like Kate said, sharing your story is changing your story. And it's really helping me too, you know. It's really helping me to be the best version of me. And that's so important of storytelling. You know, you also change your own story. You know, you make it better. You find who you are, you really are, without the mask, without, hiding and hiding. No, this is this. There is nothing more. And just like Nick, he's got no arms and legs, but guess what? He's doing it anyway. And for me, it was such a beautiful uh, awakening when I saw Nick for the first time. I thought, what going to tell? And then he told that story, and he was talking to me. He was really talking to me, and then it all came together. And I wrote that book, Trapped in a Dream. Never lose your drive, because so many people are living in a prison with the door wide open, and I want to let them out, door by door, to be the gift they were always meant to be. And Nick found out that he had also a gift. He had no arms and legs, but oh my God, he had so many other things. And guess what? He don't even want to swap with me. I said, give me, can we swap? No, he don't want to swap. That's so funny. So yeah, do it. Do it if it's in you, and help other people.
Thank you so much, Frank. Thank you so much. You're a genius. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. I think there is an adage we say, there is no one you couldn't love if you can hear their story. You see, hearing their story also means if you can open your heart to listen to their story, then something will happen to you. Except you are really hard-hearted, that you don't want to open your heart, something must happen to you when you hear people's story. Now you will change. Now, another person I was interviewing in Obehi podcast told me, you see, one of the things that I benefit in the podcast is that I learn from a lot of people because I'm just there asking questions and I'm listening. I am learning and I will continue to learn for the rest of my life. So the guy said, when the gods send a blind man to the war or to the battle, the blind man is supposed to win because the blindness were already accounted for in the mission. Which is to say, like I was saying before, you don't want to complain and say, oh, I am not like him. You don't need to be like him. Oh, I am not there. No, you don't need to be there. Where you are right now is happening there too. So take it up. Do it. Just do it. All right, J. Pasqua, thank you for being here, for your patience, for your value. How would you want to conclude this conversation? I believe that you have gotten also some point from what Frank and what other people have shared here. We want to hear the final word from you.
Absolutely. Here, let me start by saying there's a common phrase that is being heard all around social media these days. And quite frankly, I'm getting a little sick of it, but it's so appropriate for the discussion. And that is, your test may be also your testimony. Your test can be your testimony. Whatever adversity that you're experiencing and how you deal with it, that story that you can tell regarding that adversity and how you overcame it, more importantly, can help others. It can be their framework, their blueprint to experience success in spite of or despite their adversity. So again, your story, somebody else's story, can be very, very important for other people. Sharing that, just like Frank mentioned Nick and how it impacted him, that right there, again, is the example that we're talking about, using other people's stories to help your story become more deeper, more rich. I survived a tornado many years ago. What does that have to do with anything? I used the stories of my elders, of my ancestors, when dealing with trauma, adversity, wars, natural disasters. Their survival story became my survival story, you see, and it enriched it. Now, I didn't know that that was going to happen for me. I was just trying to deal with the trauma of the event. But as I came onto LinkedIn and people were talking about resilience and tenacity, it really started my journey on LinkedIn by wanting to share my story of resilience and tenacity. And it started with my ancestors, their story. And see, this can be the important thing of sharing other people's stories to help deepen, enrich, and strengthen your story in business, in life in general. So thank you, Obehi, for allowing me to speak.
That is fundamentally important. That is fundamentally important. I like that you close with your ancestors. They are the reason that we are here. There was a film, I think is Amistad or The Amazing Grace. One of the people that were enslaved in chain tried to break from freedom. He was saying, I'm going to call on my ancestors and they will intervene. I'm the reason that they have existed at all. So we must understand the connection between the other people, because the other people now are also us. Okay, for the sake of time, I would have explained the concept of personhood again, as I've learned from my guest. It's a fundamental principle that I'm now living by. Very fundamental, rudimental. Anyway, that is for another day. So the connection between us and the other people is fundamentally important, which is to say again that it is not simply just about us as individual, but about us as the extended. Therefore, we must learn to tell the story of other people, because the other people are us again. So I want to thank all of you for this sharing, for this value. This is incredible. I say it is invaluable because we cannot really quantify it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.